Welcome everyone. Today is our first ever Education on Air conference. Right now we'll be holding over 46 Hangouts via this new Google Plus technology. All of our presenters have early access to Hangouts on Air, which allow you to broadcast a Hangout via YouTube. So to watch any of the sessions today, you can simply go to one of the presenters' Google Plus page at the appointed time. The list of all the presenters are located on our EduOnAir website, which is sites.google.com/site/EduOnAir. And I'll repeat that one more time. It's sites.google.com/site/EduOnAir. So with that, I would like to take the time to introduce Bjorn Behrendt, who is the host of one of our Google Weekly podcasts, or one of the only Google Weekly podcasts that I know of, which is part of the edlisten.com network. He's also the IT coordinator and integration specialist for the Mount St. Joseph Academy in Rutland, Vermont. Today, we'll be talking about using Google Docs to organize the classroom. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Bjorn. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, Becky. And anybody, if you're posting a comment, and please do so. I am looking forward to that conversation. I do host a podcast, and I try and do training through it. Google updates things quite often, so that's why I do that. And for this session, it's organizing Google Docs for the classroom. And I did post up some presenter notes, and I think it's in the chat here, and hopefully Becky can post it as a comment in the live stream so people can get to that right there. And what I did is Google Docs is very powerful. And what I did is Google Docs is very And if you're listening on the Hangout, please make sure you're muted until you have a question. So it's very powerful, and it can easily get overwhelming for the teacher, especially when you're starting to share documents and collaborate with documents. And I've sought out to try and find a solution for that. And what I did is I actually came up with a classroom model. And then this is the classroom model that I've been sharing with my teachers, that I've been having them start off with at the beginning of the year. And I just wanted to share that with you. And it's without further ado, let's get into, I'm going to share off my screen here. What you're looking at right now is the EdListen network, and I'm going to move over to, right now I'm going to be and this is the presentation materials. What I have done is actually, instead of a presentation and slides that I wanted to do for this, I actually wanted to physically show you how I've created this and how I've worked with the students. In the past, and what I give to my teachers is this setting up a classroom printout. And this is just a little handout I give to the teachers, and I work with them at the beginning of the year for setting up a Google Classroom. And it talks about being able to create different, well, it was collections, it's now folders, and depending on where you are in the transition to Google Drive, you'll use either one of those terminology. But I create something called a class edit, a class view, and then for each student, I create a student Dropbox. And what this does is it eliminates the need to constantly share documents within all the teachers. So it works out very well to keep it organized. For me, I go straight into the student folder to correct anytime it's corrected. And even if the student shares it with me, if it's not in their student folder Dropbox there, I won't grade it. And the other thing I want to talk about is some formative assessment you can provide with this. And what I did here is I'm logged in as if I was a teacher. I chose not to use my school account. I just didn't want the accidental student name to go out there. So this is a test Google site account that I have, which means it's not going to be as populated, but it is there. And I'm logged in as a teacher. And what I recommend for each teacher to do is to go through and create a folder. they want to create it for your class. So the very first thing is, let's pretend I am a, I don't know, what's a good class? Anybody in there? Let's go science. So I have my science class, and I am a science teacher. And under that, what I will do is I'm going to create 2 more collections under here, or folders under here. I'm still getting used to the new terminology. Now, as I'm typing this in, I am keeping the word science, and I'm keeping the class edit folder. It's very important that when you do this, that you actually put in the actual class that you're teaching. Because for you, you may be teaching one class, or you may be teaching several different science classes depending on what grade you're in. But for the student, if the teacher just tells them to, if the teacher just names it class edit, and they're taking 6 different classes, they're going to have 6 different class edits, and they're not going to be able to really easily organize. So you have to think both about the teacher's perspective and the student's perspective when you're building these. Class edit. So I have the class edit and the class view. These are going to be shared with all the students. So every single student is going to have this. I'm going to click share. And this is on the class view. And I use class view quite a bit, and I'm going to show you how I use it in a little bit. Student 1, student 2. And I have to do this just once at the beginning of the year. Done. Same with the class edit. Once at the beginning of the year, I'm going to set up all the sharing. And what I will do is, depending on how I, the different activities that I'm doing. For example, in this one, I've had set up like my syllabus. Well, I would put that in the class view, so students can view that at any time, but they can't make changes. I also put any lessons into there that I am creating that are templates that I want them to work off of. So in my class view, what you will find is all my documents that are read-only. In my class edit are going to be for group documents. I find that I don't use this as much, but one example where I did use this very recently is I was talking about digital etiquette with my students, and I had them create a document where they all had to submit to me a YouTube video that was they have had. So if this is a science, maybe we're working on the group science fair. And what I want every student to do is to enter in what their project is going to be. Student and project. And that one document will reside in the class edit folder. Now, the other thing that is very important that I have added with this one is the Dropbox feature. And I've done this 2 ways depending on what grade level the teacher is at. If the student is at an age that that they can create a collection or create a folder and share it with the teacher, I'll do it all at once in the class. So I'll go through the entire class. It comes through very quickly. If it's a younger grade, because I have done this at like the 3rd grade level, the teacher themselves have been the one to create it. And I'm going to actually have the students create this one. So I'm going to log off and log back on as a student in a second. While I am doing that, is there any questions at this point?
Hi, Bjorn. Yes, I have a question. Is the Dropbox feature you're enabling for the individual student folders? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go over right now, is how the student creates the Dropbox.
And so essentially, when a student puts a document into that folder, it will lock it in.
It doesn't lock it. It doesn't like timestamp lock it, but it will more like handing in type of a thing. It's still editable by the student. The student's still the owner of the document. If you wanted more of the lock it in, you'd have to kind of look at some of the other tools that are out there, the third-party tools for learning management systems. I haven't found a drop it in, read-only type of a thing.
Okay.
Unless you require the students to say, instead of what the students could do is they could create their document and then export it as a PDF file and then put it into their Dropbox.
Okay.
And then you get the timestamp and they can't modify it after the fact.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so right now I'm logged in as a student. And what you should see under collection shared with me is there's a science class edit. This is actually the one that we just created with the science fair folder. And there's the science class view. Yes, I've done this presentation before, so my student seems to be getting a lot of classes. And what I have the students do, so every single student at the beginning of the year, what they'll do is they'll create their own collection. It's going to be science, and then the student's name. The fact that it says science is for the student's knowledge, and the fact that it says their name is for the teacher's knowledge. They're going to click OK. And then that student is just going to share that folder with the teacher. And by the end of the session that you'd have with your students, you'll have however many students. So if you have 10 students, you'll have 10 folders automatically shared with you. And this is a very quick way, so as a teacher, you don't have to create every single one. Like I said, unless you're on the very lower grades where having them create these might not be the best solution. And so now I have, and one of the other nice things that a student can do is if you create another collection, boy, this is getting confusing. This is why I have that little handout at the beginning of the year and why I work with the teachers at the beginning of the year. So science class, I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to take my class edit and science class edit and science class view and put it in there too. So now all the student has to do is go to their science class, and they will get all their documents. And in science class view, they'll see the syllabus, they'll see the lesson. Science class 8, maybe they have the science fair. And this is going to be their Dropbox. And occasionally I've actually had them actually write the word Dropbox at the end of it, just to keep some common terminology, which is one of the things I found is very important with this. And one of the ways that I use this is by going to, like, here's a lesson 9 spacing. I actually teach a Google Apps class or a computer apps class, and this is one of the lessons I give them, where I want them to learn about the different spacing they have. Because this is in the class view, they don't have read rights to it. They don't have edit rights to this. So for them to finish this assignment, what they will do is that they'll actually open it up. I tell them to make a copy of it. I'm a stickler for them renaming it, and I kind of use the naming convention of, come on. Yeah. S1. So I usually use the initials. And then they'll go down through and they'll see my examples, and then they'll see what they need to do. So once they have completed the assignment, then they'll need to just take this and put it into their Dropbox. And that's the equivalent of handing it in to me. Yes, they can edit it afterward, but the advantage for me now, and if I switch back to the teacher right here, so I'm on the teacher side, is that now, if you look at the shared with me, where did my shared go? Sort by title. Okay, they added some new, there you go. This is something with Google Drive, which is brand new this week. So, and this is the student Dropbox, and I can actually put it up into my science if I wanted to. So if I look in the student Dropbox, I then can see their lesson. Everybody else, they can't touch this one, so this is the student handed it in. I will then go through there. I'll see all the lessons. I can go in, and I can correct and add to it and work with it as if it was a regular document. If you really want the timestamp and see what they did, there is a revision history. So if you have a question about whether a student was working on this outside your time, you can always go in and look at the revision history and just kind of kick it right back to when it was, and then hold the student accountable for that. And that is the model I've been setting up for all my teachers. So again, what I recommend is at the beginning of the year, going in and at that one of those first in-services, really helping teachers set up the class edit, set up the class view, and so they understand, also know how they set up the Dropbox. Often they'll actually have me come in for the day to set up the Dropbox with all the students, so there's 2 people walking around setting this up. And the teachers who have done this have found it a very efficient way of working with Google Docs, as opposed to every single document getting shared. So this lesson 9, if I had them create it and then share it with me, I would wind up with 20 emails and 20 things just straight in my box, and it would be very hard for me to you multiply that times 4 or 5 classes that you might be teaching. It can get out of hand very quickly. So this model has helped out quite a bit with that. Any other questions or suggestions? I'm also looking for suggestions. I love hearing from everybody too.
We have quite a few questions in the comment stream, if we'd like to go to those. The first one is, do you require students to have a Gmail account, or will any account work? What type of accounts are your students using?
Well, we use Google Apps for Education, so we make sure that all the students at least have Google Apps accounts. One of the nice things about Google Apps for Education is their terms of service, and that the way it is set up, we can set up grades from as early as kindergarten all the way up through college. They can have accounts. And if there are concerns about the younger kids having access to email or sharing outside, those are settings that we can block for the younger kids but give to the older kids. And so it works out quite nicely. So every single student at all the schools that I work with has at least a Gmail account and access to the docs. I've been using Google Docs as my primarily office suite. At the school I work with, one of the things I did is I actually created an ecosystem around the school where Google Apps and Google Docs is the primary office suite. So if a student is just going to create a quick little document, or if a teacher is going to create a quick little letter, what I've said is I want you guys to do it in Google Docs. Don't open up Microsoft Office or LibreOffice or OpenOffice. Start it off in Google Docs. Try and stay within that, And the only time that I say you can break away from that, and when I recommend for breaking away from that, is when there is something that they cannot do. I think right now, like mail merge is one of the features that is really hard to do in Google Docs. So if you ever get to the point where you need to do, mail merge, then bounce into one of the other Office applications. But staying within Google Docs is a very important thing. Any other questions? Any other things that you saw on the stream?
Yeah, there are quite a few. So the next one is, Emily wants to know, is there an easy way to share with dozens, because she has about 100 students, without having to type in their email addresses individually?
Yes. Well, there is if it's pre-set up. You can either set up a group, if you have groups working, and I'll hit the screen share again on that. Right up here, you can create groups. This is probably this may be actually the business one. With your students, the problem with groups and sharing with groups is that it doesn't automatically show up on the students in the students' documents unless they first click a link. So when you create a link, when you create that initial share, it wants to send out a link to the student. The student has to click that link if it's shared with a group. They will have access to it, but they won't see it, and that's kind of like an opt-in choice. You can create contact groups within your Gmail, and those contact groups will also allow you to share with everything. The advantage of doing it using this model is once you set it up at the beginning of the year, you no longer have to worry about the sharing. So if you want to share something with your students with view rights, you just drag it into the class view. It's automatically shared with class view rights, class edit, and sharing it back with the students. So it's one of those things that you have to do once at the beginning of the year, and then you don't have to worry about sharing or entering in students' email addresses again. Anything else?
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about size limits? So what are the size limits for the files that they can store?
Well, from what I understand, if you have Google Drive enabled, which has been out for a week, it's been renamed to Documents to Drive. It will give you 5 gigabytes of space. And that's for 5 gigabytes of space, and Becky, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because for non-Google files. So if you create a document within Google, so if you create a document, a presentation, spreadsheet, form, drawing, all of those don't count toward the 5 gigabytes of space. Am I correct, Becky?
Yes, that's correct. 5 gigabytes is for non-native Google Docs files.
Okay. So with this model, you can create as many Google Docs files as you want. This also model now with Google Drive, and this is brand new, so I have not tested this out with the teachers. This is brand new this week, where they've renamed Drive. They actually have a drive on the computer, and what this is, it allows you to take these files. It works very similar to Dropbox, and it puts a folder on the computer where a student can not only see their Google Docs files that they have in there, but they can also drag in and out any other files. So with the addition of Google Drive, they can add in other documents. So if they're doing CAD software, if they're doing graphics, they can now use the same folder structure that you see in Google Docs, drag in that file to their Dropbox. And even if it's not a native Google Docs file, Google Docs can open, I think, like some 50 different types of files, from CAD software, from video, from graphics, all within Google Docs, or it would automatically be synced with you. So you now, with the Drive option and using this model, you can have any types of files. You still can do any types of files without installing Drive by clicking the upload. So you can upload any file specifically and still hand it into the Dropbox.
I have a question.
Okay.
It may be different at higher ed, but we have Google Apps for Education. We were told that our students had 25 gigabytes of storage. Drive is not enabled, but if it does become enabled, will that change their storage capacity?
Did they pay for, if they paid for the extra storage?
No.
So you might be, you're probably referring to Gmail. So for Google Apps for Education, all accounts have 25 gigabytes of storage. That's just for Gmail. And in addition to that, you have additional storage for Docs and Sites and the other apps in the suite.
On our Docs page at the bottom, it says you have 24.9 gigs left available on each individual student, and our administrators have told us that they had 25 gigs per student. Is that incorrect?
Well, that sounds like they've actually paid for the extra.
I was told we did not pay.
Then I don't know the deal that's been worked out. I know in email, if you open up your email, you'll see the 25 gigs. If you open up your Docs, you'll see the 5 gigs. And then there's an option within Docs to pay more at a yearly fee. So on my personal account, I did that. So I have 25 gigs on my personal one, but I pay, actually I don't remember what I paid, what the pricing scheme is. But that does allow you to have more space, but it is per account. So I don't know.
I'm hopping over to it right now, but I'm always telling people this, so I want to make sure I had it straight.
Yeah, and the way you look in Docs is if you click on the upload button, it'll show you how much you've used.
Okay, I'm looking right now.
Okay, any other questions?
So maybe we can go on to a couple more questions. So how long do you think it takes to get your students to understand where all these documents go? Is it a big change for them, or do they pick it up pretty quickly?
They pick it up pretty quickly. When you start expecting them to put it in there, I think when I do it, it's usually after the first assignment when I start handing out the zeros because they haven't put it into the Dropbox. They learn very quickly how to hand in work. And I don't think you can get much easier than dragging and dropping.
Have you thought about using hashtags? So Jesse suggested having a specific hashtag for each document so that you can search for that hashtag instead of searching through the various folders.
I think a hashtag would be a very good way of, either in addition to this or with this, depending on how large you're scaling up. I think one of the things I find very important is being consistent in your naming convention, and that's where the hashtags would come in. So for me, at my size school, it works out where I say, okay, make a copy, call it Lesson 9 with your initials. So I search for Lesson 9. Well, Lesson 9 is my hashtag. If you have more classes and more students, having a specific hashtag, it would probably be very important. And I'd almost put the hashtag right in your template. So if you have a template lesson that you want them to create a copy of, and by templates I don't necessarily suggest submitting to the template gallery, but I suggest putting them in the class view and having the students create a copy. And if you create a copy and you put the hashtag right in the name, when they create the copy, that hashtag will be there. So that would be a good way of using it. Good idea.
Very cool. Another question about, you mentioned that you give your teachers a handout at the beginning of the year. Is that handout public, and is there any way that you would be able to share that with the public?
Yes, that handout is public. It is on the EdListen website right now. If you go to EdListen, and one of the options that I have down below is one of the presenter notes. So on air, I'm doing 5 different sessions, so there's quite a few things. So you might actually have to click on some of the older ones posted in April. And this is using Google Docs, so here's the Google Docs. And this session I've actually done in several different ways. I've done it either as a printout right here. I have done a webinar on this in the past, and that's a recorded webinar. And for class, I actually set up a CAST ebook. So there's an ebook version of this through the CAST website, which is a universal design ebook creator. So I actually have it in 3 different ways, but this little setting up a Google Classroom, I try and keep it down as simple as possible, 1 page, giving it out to as many people as possible.
We have a couple more questions, if that's okay, Bjorn.
By all means.
Awesome. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the most compelling use of Google Docs that might help sell it to schools and parents? I know that you're an app certified trainer, so you work a lot with getting schools set up. What do you think is the most compelling use case for bringing Docs into the classroom?
I sold my principal day 1 because our student handbook, he had to modify the very first day. You know, my very first starting here, the summer there, he needed to edit the student handbook, and it wasn't always the easiest thing for him to do. And so I created it, and I created the table contents, and he was going down through and editing this, and he just fell in love with the fact that he could work on it at home. He could ask me a question or share it with the teachers. They were able to modify it, so there were several people working on this at the same time. And so my biggest thing for selling this is get the administrators, and there are so many things that they do in group functions, so many policies that get written, so many, like we just got our NEASC reaccreditation at our school, which required a lot of different documents being written, and the technology plan bringing in here, and several people editing this. And we just kind of did it all in Google Docs, and it just went smoothly. And so I hooked my principal right off with that type of collaboration. And before I take any other questions, actually I'm going to transition to one other way that I want to suggest on using this model, and that's providing formative assessment, being able to provide assessment to the student and feedback to the student. One of the things that I think Google Docs does very nicely is collaboration. And one of the things where I'm going to go to my student Dropbox, and this is the student's work that got handed in. What I recommend for teachers in providing feedback for here is to go through and kind of go, this is not the best, you can highlight a certain section, and I suggest using the comment feature because that adds comments to here. So So as a teacher, you can add comments right to the side and get some feedback. What I thought was really, really nice about this is that on the student side, let me see if I can't get to the, on the student side, they will see the same comment that you put in. And if they scroll over the comment or they click on it, they have the choice to put in reply. Computer broke. Or they also have the choice to resolve it. So going through, they can go through the comments, get feedback, whether it be from the teacher or peer feedback if you want to start working with that. They can click resolve. And the comment kind of goes away, but it doesn't go away for good in the fact that it has the comment stream up here. So all the comments that have been made within a document, you can go through this one little stream and see the entire progress through this. So that is one of the ways that, rather than going into the document and, you know, maybe I'm going to be blue, which is another valid way of doing it. But I always find that the comment stream creates that nice little organization. It allows students to mark things as resolved. So I'm very excited about it. I find it works quite well. Any other comments? Becky?
Anyone on the line have on the Hangout have any questions about what you've been hearing?
Maybe can I ask one?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I used Google Docs once in one of my classes, and one of the problems that I ran into was cheating. When it's so easy to share a document, right? It's so easy to share with somebody else, and then you know, cheating is rampant. So I wonder if you had any suggestions or thoughts about that.
Well, you can easily check the revision history and see who has the document. I mean, I'm assuming if they share it with somebody and then they create a copy, it's going to be a little bit harder. But honestly, I suggest trying to come up with lesson plans that, you know, are a little bit more project-based and really change the teaching style so you're getting the understanding that is, you're learning about the student's understanding rather than just exactly what they've written. I know that's not the case for all the time, but it is what I've been encouraging. I guess I don't really have a good answer for those times where you have a test out there and you want everybody to answer the questions correctly, and someone shares it with their neighbor. Other than the fact that you can see in the revision history when it was created, and who has edited it. Like this one, where you can see both the teacher and the student here. If this was shared with another student and they made a change, you'd see student 2 written in here. So, I mean, I guess the first level is, it's not easy right off the bat to find cheating, but if you suspect it, I would say start checking out the revision history. And also,
Bjorn, can I add something to that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
You know, what it sounds like you're describing is not necessarily a technology problem. It's sort of an honor problem and perhaps a classroom management problem. So I think, you know, if you have a class or a group of students that's prone to cheating, it's not going to be limited to just Google Docs or just where it's easy.
No,
so yeah, I think the revision history is probably the best way to do it from a technical standpoint. But yeah, I think you have to sort of reinforce your school's honor policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what ended up happening. The revision history, like what happened was the night before an assignment was due, somebody posted the answer on a public Google Docs, and it was quite easy to, yeah, I had never told them about the revision history, so it was quite easy to actually go in and check. And the only reason I noticed was because, in fact, they had, in an attempt to erase what they had done, they erased the entire document. And so I logged in at 9 in the morning, and the document was empty. And so I went in the revision history, and it turned out at 3 a.m. somebody had posted the answer, and then tried to erase it. And, yeah, so.
Yeah, I think at that point you have to use that as a teachable moment.
Absolutely, and I did. It was just hilarious because I teach first year university, and it was the students were sort of surprised that I cared. It was kind of sad and disgusting, but interesting at the same time.
Yeah, I work with mostly middle school students who spend a large portion of their school time trying to be clever, and as a result, they're always finding the holes. They're always finding sort of new ways to push the boundaries, and we sort of, we encourage them to sort of kick the tires and to actually sort of show us the things that, especially with Google Docs and other new technologies, holes that they see that could be exploited, so that we can sort of as a community address that as learners, as teachers, and as technology users.
That's a nice idea. I like that.
Yeah. Okay, I actually have to wrap this up a little bit. I would love to keep this going, and because I have another session starting at 2 o'clock called PD Now. So any last quick questions before I head off?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's a very simple organization system that I hadn't ever thought about, and it took 15 minutes to show me and be able to show teachers probably in just that amount of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys again for joining us today. This is one of our first sessions for our EDU on Air. Bjorn mentioned that he has another session coming up now, and we have 45 other sessions happening today. So again, check out our EDU on Air conference website to locate the different sessions and speakers, and we hope to see you on another webinar today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.